All right. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar that is part of our e-commerce and digital marketing series. Innovate Hawaii is part of the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, HTDC, which is a state agency attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, whose mission is to grow the tech economy and workforce in Hawaii. Innovate Hawaii is the state's NIST Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center, which supports small and medium-sized manufacturers to enhance their productivity, growth, and technical performance through programs and services across the islands. My name is Nicole, and I'm a project engineer here at HTDC Innovate Hawaii. Some housekeeping items before we dive into the webinar. The session will be recorded and will be sent to all who registered. We are in webinar mode already, so your cameras and microphones should be muted. And please feel free to send in your questions during the session through the Q&A function. So today we have Namiko Kajiwara, award-winning food innovator, who will talk about the key factors of product localization using real-life examples from clients she's worked with. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Namiko to take the lead for today's session.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Great. My name is Namiko. I'm actually currently living in New York, so I look like the winter person because I'm in New York. So today, let me share my screen. So today I am going to talk about design thinking for international expansion. As you can tell from my name, I'm originally from Japan, born and educated in Japan. I got Nikkei 1000 year 2010 because of the world first 0.00% beer clean-free launch. It was 2009. And then I came to the US 2013 to get the Stanford MBA 2015. And then since then, I've been in the US, and then mostly my work is around food, international expansion, both direction, US and Japan. So my project was around like Blue Bottle Coffee, which is the third wave coffee started in San Francisco. I helped them to open up the first 2 stores in Japan. 2017, I also did a similar thing in a different direction from Japan to US. Stonemill Matcha, which is like a brand creation project in San Francisco. 2018, I worked with ANA, which is an airline company in Japan. We did an air restaurant project, like a chef collaboration project. And then currently, as full-time work, I am working at Boxu, which is Series A e-commerce startup. We do subscription and then online grocery. I guess most of you don't know much about all the projects I mentioned, so I want to quickly go through how I did my international expansion project. So this is a Blue Bottle Coffee in Japan. So Blue Bottle Coffee in San Francisco was already popular when I joined the company, but it was still really small. The headquarters only had 4 people, but they actually operated 17 stores, both San Francisco and New York. And then they wanted to open the store in Japan. Originally, they were reaching out to me if I can open the store within 3 months. Obviously, they didn't know anything about international expansion. So I helped them to go through how, the first thing I did was, like the team building, the Japan entity creation, and of course, like store design, like a product modification, these things. And then I think after a little bit a year, like probably 10 months, I was able to open the 2 stores in Tokyo, which is pretty popular. They are generating like huge revenue for Blue Bottle Coffee. So now they are actually expanding to Korea. So obviously this international expansion to Japan was successful. And then the other thing, I use this as an example for today's talk. This is Stonemill Matcha. It's a project sponsored by Suntory, the Japanese company. They wanted to do something in the US. They wanted to expand their tea expertise to the US, and then actually they tried many times. What they did in the past was they have a pet bottled tea, and they just tried to sell almost the same format in the US, but it didn't work well because the market difference. Then they did a very different way for this project, and then it was pretty successful. This is very popular cafe in San Francisco locally. So I use this as an example for today's talk. And then the next one is Air Restaurant. This is just more showing what I did in the past. This is like bringing San Francisco chef, different direction, Japanese chef to San Francisco, and then let them collaborate for the one-night event. And then currently I'm working at Boxu. So this is also from Japan to US direction. So these are the subscription box. We have theme every month, and then we curate according based on the theme we created. For example, the next month is the Momoiro, pink Valentine's Day. So everything will be pink. It's pretty cute. And then the other thing is a box grocery we recently started. We just started like a few months ago, 3 months ago. This is basically selling grocery online, which is pretty big space in e-commerce and food technology right now. So before getting into detail, I kind of wanted to ask you about, obviously you are interested in international expansion because you are attending this. The other thing is probably you are interested in Japanese market. So if you have some thoughts, idea, like why you want to do international expansion, why Japan, can you put your thought in chat? Then I can, take a look and then get some sense, why you are here. Maybe it needs time, so I'm moving forward, but, oh, yes, thank you. So moving forward, so Japan is very interesting market. Probably at this point, you probably heard at least once, Japan is very unique market. And then yes, Japan is a very unique introvert market, but it's a big market, but shrinking, because of the population decline. So it's pretty interesting market. It's big, but not growing, kind of, like stable, but it's really interesting, challenging market. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I guess there are, a lot of reason you are here. Yeah, I'm seeing like, like I want to reach to more customer, like I want to, advise customer in a different way. There are multiple points, like factors for the successful international expansion, like product, marketing, sales, biz dev, the entity, sometimes people set the entity in the wrong way, or team is pretty important. It's also, depends on what you are aiming for, or distribution, logistics. So if you have a program or if you have clients, I think it's better to figure out where they are struggling first. But today, this is one of our webinar seminar. I'm focusing on one thing. I think everyone should start from here. So which is find your spot in user's life. This is the most tendency I see my clients in the past. So they came to me asking for a lot of advice, but sometimes a lot of time, actually, they don't know, why their product or why they are offering, why their value proposition would work in Japan. Sometimes they just wanted to have a tips, but what I want to say is like, if you don't have a spot in the consumer's heart, it's so difficult to win in the market. Even if you have the right team, right entity, right business person, right channel, or right distribution, unless you have an USP in your customers' heart, it's very difficult to sell out. And then I also have a lot of questions around, how should I do the localization? That's also very common, like FAQ. And then that's also lead to my point, find your spot in a user's life. These are the biggest common pitfall about the localization. One is the overconfidence about the product. Users don't buy your ego. Like user is looking for some sort of solution or inspiration in their life through the product. So if you don't any modification, and sometimes it works because that matches consumers problem, but most of the case, the overconfidence result in, like users are like, I'm not interested in this product. And then the other thing is the other direction. Sometimes the company try to over localize. They try to listen, too much stuff, or they try to be too fit in too much, then selfless in anything like selfless product. Of course, if you're ordinary, no one is going to buy. So it's very like difficult balance of not being flexible but not changing too much. The other thing is this is also overlooked sometimes in the local market, in your target market. In this case, maybe in Japan, sometimes there's no market. So don't waste time or money if you think there's no market in Japan, because it's a different country. That could happen. And then, or maybe small market. So this is, I try to kind of express how this chicken and egg issue is difficult. So when you are expanding market internationally, I assume you already have some sort of like a successful or like at least working product in your market, which means it is solution or inspiration to your user in your market. So you already have a solid stuff, solid solution. But if you're expanding to the new market, you're facing actually your unknown user in unknown market. And then I think the biggest problem is even though you have kind of solution as a product, but you don't have anything about users. You feel like probably some, because I think maybe Hawaii has a lot of Japanese. I think that's a great foundation, but unless you lived in Japan for a long time and the most updated, it's very difficult to fit or find the user's problem. So if this shape your product as a solution, and then the customer's problem as a problem match, consumer buy. So that's how consumption happens, product market fit happens. So today I want to talk about this design thinking. I'm not sure how many people knows about this design thinking process, which is pretty it's not new, but a newish technique, how to build an innovation, basically to build a new product. And then I find this process is very, very useful for international expansion, because you already have a kind of prototype as a new product in new market, but you still don't know about the problem in your new customer segment. So this design thinking process is pretty useful. So what is design thinking? Let me explain. It's a user-centric innovation process. Innovation process means the process for the new product or new business that defines user's problem and end solution. And then it has like two components, problem finding, this design problem part, and the right side, the solution part, solution findings. And then this diagram is, so the design thinking has a principle of diverge and then converge. So when you are in, for example, this problem space, the first things you want to do is explore as much as possible. So try to understand the customer as much as possible, try to figure out as much as possible, and then you narrow down, this could be a problem, this could be a problem, this could be a problem. Then you try to narrow down what is the biggest problem you want to solve with your product, maybe. And then once you have the consumer problem defined, you want to move on solution place. Of course, I think this is easier to understand. Basically, you brainstorm as much as possible. Like, this would be a solution. Maybe we could go this way. We could go this way. And then testing. And then consumer says yes, no, and then you will have the best solution to the product. Just give you an example, this is a reliable process. So this process is innovated by IDEO. So David Kelly is a founder of IDEO, and then he's also a designer of like so many famous products actually. The upper one is the first Apple mouse. Currently, it looks so different, but this is the first mouse from the Apple. So then he designed, the mouse of the Apple is known for intuitive design, like very sleek design, easy to understand. You don't need any explanation. So that's kind of like how they bring the innovation. This is the for the diabetes people, they have to do insulin injection every day, and then Eli Lilly wants to bring like new way of this insulin injections. Then this design firm, David Kelly, did all the research like with this design thinking process, and then they came up with this needleless. Actually, there is a needle, but the customer, like a user, doesn't feel like this has a needle. So it's like a pen, and it's so easy to use and clean as well. So this was also became like a huge innovation at the time. Of course, they keep doing these things. But one thing I really want to emphasize from this process is people often look at, solution. So the question I often get asked about the international expansion is, Namiko, should I do this thing? Should I fit with Japanese consumers' style, or like what do I have to change? This is more like solution-driven thinking. But first thing I always recommend is basically understanding the consumer's program, the program of the market. So this is like a famous quote: the part of the challenge of innovation is coming up with a program to solve, not just its solution. You already have a prototype, the solution, new service as a prototype, because you already have a business in the market. But the issue is you really need to understand basically market and the user. Okay. So today, this is the other direction. I know like you guys want to go to US, to Japan, but today I use an example of this Stonemill Matcha project because this is purely run by this design thinking process in more professional way. And because I guess the people lives in the US, the Hawaii for probably a long time, then probably it's easier to understand this direction, how we try to reach to the US customer. It's basically same thing. If you're going to Japan, you want to reach to the Japanese customer. So let me take this example. So this is like from Japan to US, but the process is same. This is probably easier to understand. So when you start this design thinking process for international expansion, probably you want to set some design challenge as a, how can I say, like a theme. So our design challenge is, how could we create daily matcha experience in San Francisco? So this problem setting is pretty important because this could lead anywhere. Like if we set different question, like how could we push Japanese culture in San Francisco, which sounds very different, with the objective is so different. What I wanted to do for this project is, I don't want to create Japan in San Francisco. I want authenticity, but I don't want to create Japan in San Francisco. Probably you know what I mean. Some too much authentic product could create really authentic experience, but sometimes this wouldn't be daily product. So you wanna think about, how much frequently consumer, your user wants to buy your product, because this is a matcha project. This has to be daily. We can't sell matcha like $100 or $200. So in order to sustain brand business as a beverage, as food product, we should actually penetrate into the consumer's product locally. So that's why I define this design challenge as how could we create daily matcha experience in San Francisco? This experience part is also important in this case because so matcha is kind of new at the time. This is like started 2015. This at the time, matcha in San Francisco wasn't that penetrated. That wasn't popular. So we needed to bring this as an experience rather than just a product. This is more like a lifestyle product tendency. In these days, you need to bring the experience rather than just a product. So that's why this is how I said it, the design challenge. So the first step, as I mentioned, is finding a program. This is a very chaotic process. So if you're doing this process, if possible, I highly recommend having someone as an innovation coach or a process coach. In this way, actually, you need help for the process management rather than some like a practical input. There are a lot of people who can do the practical input, but as I mentioned, this process helps you to really connect your solution to the market. So the first phase is finding a program. Then the first thing we kind of overview was the market difference. So the matcha in Japan is very, very traditional product. And then the emotion associated is a little bit of a kind of scary fear, like, I don't want to touch this complicated product type of feelings. My mom, actually, she has a license of the matcha teacher, but she really does because, she is so trapped, in a way trapped, how it's supposed to be. And then because Japanese are so precise, and then if there is so many rules, we kind of don't want to do it, don't want to touch, we don't want to be wrong. So that's how my emotion associate with matcha, like this, like the legs is so painful. Yeah, it's beautiful. If you come to Japan, if you do this thing, it's beautiful. Namiko, thank you so much. So many my international friends really appreciate this tea ceremony, but for Japanese, it's very kind of bothersome. And then, of course, we use matcha for the sweets. So in the modern context, it's only like sweets, matcha chocolate, matcha ice cream, matcha Kit Kat. Probably everyone loves matcha Kit Kat. This is a Japan special one anyway. But anyway, so the matcha in Japan is like very super traditional kind of emotion. It's like scary type of thing, or like fun, dessert, delicious, something like that. But in 2015, looking at matcha in the US, the matcha was actually upcoming product. I think it was defined by Whole Foods. I also saw the opportunity in matcha at the time because it was rising. And then there were some like cool matcha brands here. It's a matcha bar. I'm not if there still exists, probably there is. And then this is, I think, the New York matcha brand. It's cute, like very stylish. And then the other thing is this is a health benefit of matcha, which I never mentioned, like the Japanese perspective. So the American people see matcha as more like stylish, modern, and then healthy product. So it's very different. It's very different context. So if we bring this to the US, I don't think we can penetrate to the just consumers' daily life. That's why we did this design thinking process. The first step I usually recommend is just talk to a bunch of users. Users mean the newer local users. Don't talk to the Japanese friends in Hawaii, probably they are very Americanized. That's helpful, but they are not living in Japanese lifestyle in Japan. There are a lot of context if you live in that city. So you wanna talk to users as much as possible. These days, Zoom is very helpful. Maybe you can arrange something, someone in Japan. So talk to users, 30 plus people, then you get reach to some sort of conclusion as an insight. And I also highly recommend talking to experts because experts also look at the users or like industry trend. So they give you a lot of insights. They also save your time as well. But one thing you really need to be careful is experts are not always right. Experts are not usually innovators. I'm saying the innovation expert, but I'm saying don't trust experts. Don't rely on experts. Experts are just your help, help to understand the market, help to understand the general term of the users. But your real insights, your learning should coming from the users. So one thing I like about helping this design thinking process, any client is I always learn from something from my client's interview. So when you are talking to the customer, you extract key user insights. Every time you talk to the users, you extract key insights. Like these are the insights as a team pulled up to the team. T supports customers' personal wellness and balance. Modern yet authentic experience resonates. Oh, the combination of modern and authentic. In that way, what is the authentic? There are a lot of questions around it. That's also something you wanted to write down. Tea has a healthy, functional. How would the Americans appreciate? Of course, that's what I thought, right? Tea drinkers appreciate the craft and ritual of tea. Ritual. These are very like San Francisco-y thing. San Francisco people loves like this ritual, like very hippie type of thing. Tea often represents a moment to playfully experiments. This sounds like tea is not that common product in San Francisco audience, or maybe American audience. So like this way, we collected more and more, like hundreds of insights, and then we also generated a lot of questions to ask. So it's actually very fun process to talk to users. A lot of customers don't like talking to users for some reason. Users don't bite you. Users are actually nice. So just talk to people, talk to Japanese people in Japan. That's one thing you can do first. And then after talking to more than 30 people, you see some tendency or you accumulate consumer insights to define some sort of program or like some insights you want to solve. You probably have multiple of them. Okay, the quality is not great. So let me try to remember what it says. Yeah, for example, first one is like, he's saying like, the other insights actually, the second one had was, at the time, San Francisco people start saying like, coffee is tiring, coffee is jittery. I want to reduce the number of the coffee. I still want the first cup of coffee in the morning, but I really want a good sleep so that I want to avoid some of the caffeine in the afternoon, even I don't want to have a second cup of coffee. And then the other thing is the tea associated with the fun experience. Because probably it's new, it's not that common thing like in the routine, but they also really eager to learn. But there's no authentic matcha product at the time in San Francisco at the time. Some of them are saying like, I actually did so many research, like Starbucks matcha actually has a sugar and matcha should be healthy. And then why I am consuming sugar? She went to Peet's because Peet's only provide obviously like a non-sugar matcha, but she doesn't like Peet's. So she was looking for some sort of like a third wave of matcha cafe, I guess. So we prototyped, like according to these insights. They also have a lot of like, taste profile type of thing as well. So we try to prototype this concept. We created the upper right. We created so many directions about the cafe, so many directions about like a user profile, user insights, echoing the store design. Is this going to be more daily? Is this going to be more destination type of cafe? And then we try prototype and test. It's very important to test in an early stage. I think traditionally, particularly in a traditional marketing, you test at the very end. But in this international expansion or the design thinking, you want to test as much as possible and then as early as possible. So you don't have to be perfect about this prototype. You can use your own product as a prototype, or you can also create some other direction to stimulate the customer, to get some more insights. So in this way, we go back and forth. Once we learn, we reflect it. One interesting learning in this process was, as a Japanese, we know, probably everyone knows, matcha is actually tea. But obviously, most of the customer in San Francisco didn't know about matcha is a tea. So they actually wanted to confirm if that's a gluten-free, or the matcha is basically mystery stuff. So if we just tell, actually, this matcha is a ground green tea, they're like, oh my gosh, this is really healthy. Or sometimes they worry about the caffeine. So we also, try to educate caffeine as a part of like brand statement, something like that. So anyway, the point is talk to the users and then bring the prototype, because prototype will stimulate the reactions. So in this way, you can somewhat define what you want to do, what kind of problem customers have. So in this case, what we learned is, so San Francisco customer wants to have authentic but modern experience, matcha experience. And then that sounds like they want to interact with people. They also want to learn what is the matcha, because matcha is like, they are curious about the mysterious product. And then they know, like, the Starbucks and Peet's are American company. They don't want to purchase matcha from American company. And then what else? Yeah, and then they will also want to come to the afternoon. So that's what we knew. So these are kind of like, needs defined. Then I created this prototype. It doesn't have to be this massive. So this is like phase one, end of the phase one. We kind of created a cafe in one of the ideal office. This is just my record. So we have a brand story. It takes a little bit while. So we set a theme like we energize your life. This is like a experience definition. It's like we try to kind of set some like a UX structure, user experience structure. And then this is like a prototype of the experience. At that time, we had no idea about where we are going to open the store. This is first expression. And this is what we want as a, the bar setting. So as you can tell, it doesn't have to be this quality, this level, but you want to be concrete. If you're like providing e-commerce, you also want to prototype as much as possible. Feel and touch will change consumers' reaction. Yeah, something like that. I just wanted to show this as kind of prototype example. So now we had some sort of like a prototype, right? But it's not the ending. You need to also like focus on like solution as well. So in design thinking, actually for me, like first part is most important process, but in a solution space, defining the evolving the solution is also important. So in this particular case, so each case has to modify what to do in this phase. But in this particular cafe project, what I did is actually I brought the experts at this point. I didn't bring expert at the beginning. I think this is also the other common pitfall for the international expansion, bringing expert too early. If you don't know the market, if you don't know what your target customer want, don't bring experts. You know, like expert can do anything, but they need to know what's the problem, what kind of thing, you know, you want to create, which means you need to understand the customer and market better. So the approach I took for this particular project was the customer is saying they want a modern experience, basically San Francisco experience, but they also want to be authentic, which is like a contradictory stuff. So what I did was we set San Francisco's chef and architect designer as a core, the main architect and the chef, but we also assigned Japanese chef and Japanese designer, which was a little bit costly, but it was because we created a so great product. For this architect part, we brought actually San Francisco designer to Japan and then let them digest what is the authentic design of Japan. Japanese design is not only, what is it in English term, simple Zen design. We have so many different type of design because we have so many like very long history. But what you can see in the US is only a part of it. So we brought this designer to Japan and then brought her like maybe 10 tea ceremony, maybe about like 10 temples. And then we also, you know, like Japan also as a country modernized stuff as well. So I also showed her what is the modern design in Japan and what is the authentic design in Japan. Then as a professional, top professional, she can understand how Japanese design evolved from like, you know, 500 years to like 2020 or 15 at the time. And then she digest and then screen the information. Then she reflect this authentic Japan to San Francisco. These pictures are something she kind of resonated as a San Franciscan. So San Francisco people like this like a nasty design, which we found in Kyoto. This was so random. This was so random cafe. We just went there and then she's like, oh, this is so beautiful. So, you know, these professional can catch these details and then reflect to their own design. That was, I thought, very interesting. And then for the chef, we did a lot of analytics as well. For example, for San Francisco consumers, they don't want to have very complicated stuff. They love simple. But this Japanese chef, they drafted some of the menu. For example, it was like cherry blossom amazake matcha latte. I don't think that worked, and it didn't work in our user testing because it was too authentic. It wasn't like San Francisco palette or San Francisco ready. It was too traditional. Then, you know, we kind of mapped out, you know, where we should be using like many different type of, how can I say, tools. And then we also had the San Francisco chef. We were lucky to work with Chad from Taoting. He's very respected in the local. And then this was also part of our strategy because we want to be daily and we want to be respected. So we actually seek for the collaboration with the top chef, top, you know, celebrity in the food industry in San Francisco. And then Chad is at the time very interested in matcha. He wanted to experiment so many different type of matcha. And then luckily we had so many different type of matcha. So this is all different kinds of matcha in a different grade, different shade, different meal. Yeah, and then he created different type of matcha pastry. That was really fun timing because we basically divulged the solution. We made so many different type of bread, the sandwich that goes well with matcha, pastry, like matcha pastry, what else? Yeah, matcha donuts, like so many different things. And then we actually tested and then narrow down the solution. The same thing about this architect thing. The initial stage is like expanding the idea as much as possible and then narrowing down the concept later. And then this is the final outcome. For me, this is very authentic, authentic in a way, the modern way, modern authentic way. And I think if I have a lens, where the lenses of San Francisco person, I actually lived in San Francisco for 10 years, and then this is totally San Francisco. If I describe this cafe as San Francisco people is, oh, this is so nasty, the dark, this blue, calm them down, like I can really reflect myself. Maybe they do journaling here. They love like this, natural wood setting. They also have this type of natural light, not too bright. So every detail is very San Francisco. But yet, if I wear the Japanese glasses, it's very Japanese as well. So that's how I did for this project. And then one thing, actually, there's one thing I didn't tell you at the beginning. Actually, there was an inspiration. And then my client's original ask is they just want to open the same thing in San Francisco and they wanted to see how it works. And I immediately said, no, because you don't understand San Francisco market. The cafe, if you want to have a successful cafe, you want to be daily. And then what you have in Japan is not daily. I don't think it's going to be successful. I'm going to show you this. This is original in Japan. It's called Imon Salon. It's beautiful. I really love their cafe. I was honestly excited about, working, like internationalizing this cafe. But this was an inspiration. But I don't think this worked as the San Francisco cafe. It was the purpose is different, market is different, so that how users visit this cafe is different. So I hope this was a helpful process explanation. This is the end of my presentation. I think we have about 15 minutes for Q&A. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Namiko. I think there's one in the Q&A box.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of already touched on it, but where can I begin my product research? I see how my Japanese customers admire our craftsmanship, and I am looking for a way to show our items. I'm on Maui, and we have less visitors from Japan.
Okay. Yeah, maybe if you wanna articulate about your question, please do. So I'm kind of like wondering like what type of product is this? Yeah, craftsmanship means there is some like physical product.
Katie, if you want to explain your product to Namiko.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, I kind of know what her products are. So she does like kind of like bags and head wraps and surfboard kind of slings that you can use to carry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think initial stage of the interview, you don't have to show like physically. Like I ran like innovation accelerator during the COVID as well, and then my clients perfectly did over the Zoom. You just need to show through the Zoom. So I think it's better to show even over the video. Yeah, I'm not sure that answered the question. That's too simple, but just show, and then talk to the customer, and then maybe the way you show, maybe you can be creative. Maybe you can kind of record the video and then send it to the customer. Yeah, it depends on the, okay. Does that answer your question? You can show how to use or something as well. Like my clients actually did a demonstration. For example, it was like makeup product, and then they want to provide some like a simple makeup stuff. Yeah, and then what they did was they did a Zoom makeup class. The makeup artist actually instruct the customer to do the makeup. The original idea was this makeup artist himself to do the makeup, to make it simpler, like interesting way. But because of the COVID, Japan was so strict, like meeting people, they couldn't do so. So they kind of came up with the idea, how could we do like remotely? And then that was actually really helpful to figure out what is the launch campaign. Then they can kind of like, now they have a content, they don't have to go to meet customer. So this type of thing actually helps like idea brainstorming as well. Yeah, so that's the, maybe I hope this will be the answer for the first question. Then I will proceed.
Do you recommend trade shows? What is a good way to reach Japanese customers or people that can give feedback on our products?
Oh, trade shows. If you can go to Japan and do trade shows, yeah, go for it. But regular customer is not coming to these trade shows. So you mostly like exposed to your distributor or business partners, but still better than nothing. I past clients, they didn't have any budget. They went to trade show as a kind of, they didn't present the product in a trade show, but they went to the trade show, which is a perfect fit for their product. And then they interviewed people at the trade show, because the trade show, people are so open to network. So people are like, oh, that's interesting. I'm happy to answer your question, type of stuff. So they actually brought some, like paper to show the prototype, and then did a lot of interviews. I thought that was creative as well. How companies are seeking how to find users. So in the design thinking, we don't screen customer first. I mean, we don't screen the demographics first. Some are very little, maybe like, yeah, maybe like this product is for seniors because it's a wheelchair. Then maybe you want to talk with like older people first. But in the design thinking, at the particularly early stage, you kind of talk anyone. Then like in the process, who is your customer demographics, and then narrow down. But if it's a technical question, I don't know anyone in Japan, maybe I can help you find some, it depends on the product type. There are a lot of ways these days to meet online, like a new person. So we could be creative, even you don't know anyone in that market. Like going to online, like networking stuff. You only need to know one person in the market, and you already know if you are interested in Japan, you got to know me. So maybe that's one channel. And then, do you recommend that B2B exporters have distributor in Japan? If you already, defined, your target market defined, like your strategy defined, yes. But if if you want to start exporting your product through B2B distributors, maybe don't commit large amount first. You want to test like a small scale, then see if it works, and then go expand. I can also share the Blue Bottle Coffee story. They had a lot of actually Japanese customer to their San Francisco stores, Because San Francisco is one of the touristy place, so they came to San Francisco, and then Japanese are actually like really coffee lovers. They love coffee, and then they are curious about like American coffee as well. I honestly think Japanese coffees are better, but they are curious about American coffee. They really admire American product, anything. So the coffee nerds are coming to the Blue Bottle because Blue Bottle coffee at the time was like so respected. So everyone coffee top nerd in the design thinking world, it's called like a extreme users. These extreme users, they are like more independent thinker. They find stuff by themselves. So they found themselves Blue Bottle coffee is somewhat like really cool in San Francisco or cool in American coffee industry, and then they come. And then these extreme users or advanced users, they spread the word. They are influencers in a way. Yeah, in this case, it's called influencers. But actual, like real influencers, not the fake influencers. They're real influencers because they love coffee. They have, of course, coffee friends, and they have maybe industry friends as well. They have probably coffee owners friends, and then the word spread out. Then the small demands coming into the Blue Bottle coffee, like some small importers were reaching out to Blue Bottle coffee if they can export the product, and then they don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Hawaiian companies like that, probably like people want to do small B2B import export stuff, but that should be like a kind of small experimentation. And if you are okay, if you are happy with that, export, I think that's also totally fine. But if you want to go beyond that, I suggest you do a little bit of research about the market, like a little bit of research about how actually the local, which this means like a Japanese customer use your product for what. So maybe that's one thing. Do you recommend Line as a good? Yes, yes. The Line is a primal. Everyone has Line. If you don't have Line, yeah, it's really bad. So yes, yeah, yes.
Great. We have another question that came in the chat. It says, Hawaii is viewed in Japan as a summer season. How can we change that perception in Japan to one that is year round?
That's a touristy question. Well, these type of question is very difficult. Yeah, I'm not sure like why you want to change 1 year around. Maybe you want to have more guests. I think it depends on the goal. If you, for example, if you're running like maybe guest house or hotel, and then you want to have more customer in the winter, it's not necessarily the image issue. You can have other way to solve your issue. Yeah, Hawaii is viewed as a I don't know. I'm not sure like what's the goal of this change. Maybe that's why it's a difficult kind of to answer. Maybe yes, yeah. If you really want to change the perception, Hawaii for all season, because Hawaii is really like happy place for Japanese people. And I think honestly, like Japanese people consider Hawaii as kind of summery tropical place plus New Year, because a lot of like famous people, like celebrity, visit Hawaii for year end. So these two are I think the occasion we think about the Hawaii. Yeah, of course, you can do like marketing about these things, but
Yeah, hard question.
Yeah. Yes. And I like Hawaii during the winter, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have another question.
Yes.
So if a company has a product that they sell in Hawaii that does really well, with the tourism market, do they still need to consider, altering their product if they want to sell that product in Japan?
So the occasion is different, like just think about yourself. You go somewhere and then you buy something. It's very different from whether you consume daily in the original market or not. So it depends on the product type. Maybe if your product is more like occasional product, maybe like you can do the same thing in Japan, but that's why I showed this cafe example. The matcha can't be sell like once a month, it has to be daily. So that's why it has to be in a daily life. So it depends on I think the product type.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you recommend them keeping their packaging consistent with their American products, or should they kind of tailor their packaging towards what the Japanese consumers would like?
That also depends on like how you design the user program, user needs, right? Also, I didn't talk about this today, but how much your product is modern also relate with how much you want to change. The Blue Bar coffee is very modern. It's like a most advanced design in the market. So actually they didn't have to change that much in the end. We of course add Japanese. We of course added some like a twist. Japanese people actually likes plastic. So kind of we use like a little bit more plastic because they feel more secure. So that's how we modified a little bit. But design-wise, we didn't have to change at all. But if the original product is a little bit behind the design or too traditional or too, how can I say, too far from what they are familiar. And then if you want to, be much closer, it's also like a distance, emotional distance as well. It depends. It depends on the product. You can be old, authentic, and then not changing as well. If you look at the tea product, some of the tea product is very old, like Chinese tea product sells well with the authentic product with like a Chinese character, because customer want this type of product. Yeah, so it's kind of depends. Yeah, how you position the product.
And
but one thing is function. As I mentioned, sometimes, for example, it's not anymore, but at the time, Japanese customer really want a little bit of like a security for as a packaging, as a function. Then maybe we want to add some plastic in addition to paper. Yeah, these are something like, it's not the design, but it's more like a functional needs. And if it's safer, if it's selling well, maybe we should go for it. Yeah, something like that.
Right. And do you have any recommendations on where, they could look for, latest Japanese product trends?
Japanese product and
Like,
the question is,
like if they wanted to see like what's, the trending these days, is there a website or a resource that they could look at?
Just follow the influencers, Japanese influencers. TikTok, these days most advanced, latest one is in TikTok and not Instagram anymore. But in order to overlook what's going on in Japan, of course, Instagram is the easiest way to look at, because it's pictures and not video. Yes.
Great. And we have one more question in the Q&A. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but do you see more Japanese travel to Maui in the future as they look for more authentic experiences?
I think Maui will come. Yes, yes, definitely yes. These days I visit Hawaii like once or twice a year, and then the Maui is, I really want to visit. And then once I think these influencers visit Maui, I think that will be, yeah, definitely Maui, yeah, will be popular because it's already popular among like young professionals in the US. And then these things usually like transfer to Japanese audience. I mean, the customers as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Namiko, for sharing all your knowledge and expertise with us today. I think that's all the questions.
Great.
So the next webinar in our e-commerce and digital marketing series is optimizing your e-commerce email marketing with Klaviyo. Akemi Hiat of Hidden Gears will be talking about how to grow your customer engagement and sales through Klaviyo's powerful email marketing tools. And we actually have also launched our Klaviyo pilot project. So if you're ready to take the steps towards advanced email marketing, then this pilot program could be for you. So selected companies will be awarded a vendor engagement of up to $7,000 to implement the Klaviyo platform to drive your email marketing efforts. So I'll send some links to that in our post follow-up email when we send out the recording. Our website is currently down, so these links may not work right now, but feel free to check them out later. So thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're interested in our services from Innovate Hawaii, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So thanks, everyone. Thanks so much, Namiko.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.